Is Trudeau at Super Bowl Sunday in Las Vegas? It looks like it. It looks like it. Maybe. Take it with a grain of salt. Maybe not, right? But it looks like he's in Las Vegas according to flight records, etc. And Monday, there will be a report on a Rive scam. So the Auditor General's report drops Monday. So the Conservatives are trying to tentpole that, meaning they're trying to make that into an event type thing and get excited about this. This is going to be a big scandal. And it's like, there's all sorts of big scandals. We'll talk about all of those other big scandals too. Don't worry. There's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, Fermi Levels is sharing this meme as seen in the local newspaper. And it's a Jagmeet-centric meme, right? And Jagmeet, the wolf, it's a three little pigs meme. And the pigs are hiding in a straw house, I guess. And Jagmeet's there, and he's got his list of demands. And he's the big bad wolf, of course. And he says, I'll huff and I'm puff, and I'll huff and I'll puff. And the pigs say, don't worry, that's all he does, right? Liberal NDP supply and confidence agreement is the straw house, right? So I like memes. I think that's funny. But there you go. People are talking about how Jagmeet Singh is saying one thing, but his actions say quite another, right? And they speak volumes, those actions do. The Buck, you will, says, where is Trudeau on Super Sunday? Right, the superbest of owls, right? In Las Vegas to watch the game in person, of course. Oh my gosh, is he going to be a Swiftie? Is he going to be in Taylor Swift's thing? No, he's insufferable. There's no way that Taylor Swift would let him anywhere near her. But still, you realize this means that we, the taxpayer, paid for his flight crew, his security, and maybe another plane if history repeats itself. FYI, CFC-1 is the call sign for CanForce 1. And so the Bombardier CC-144D landed as CFC-1 in Las Vegas 6 hours ago. So there you go. Justin Trudeau is just, quick. I mean, as many Canadians do, flying down to the Super Bowl to check it out, right? When you are the leader of a country that you hate, you get out of the country as much as possible, I suppose. Pretty wild stuff. So that's what Justin Trudeau will be doing. If you're watching the Super Bowl today, keep watch. See if you can spot Justin Trudeau. I wonder if the cameras will find him. Lawrence Fox, let's talk about Ukraine, and then we'll come back to Canada. This has to do with Canada as well. We're funding a lot of this, and a lot of these stories have to do with funding and money and all the rest of that. And there's big problems. Like, there's huge, huge problems. And it's not just in Canada. It's in the UK. It's in the US, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it seems like all of the problems center around Ukraine. It's like Ukraine is the drain in the bathtub. Everything just keeps getting sucked towards it. Lawrence Fox says, who knew what a Pandora's box Elon Musk taking over X would become? Desperate stuff from Boris Johnson. He could have just denied Putin's allegations point blank, but instead he tries to discredit Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, it speaks volumes. So this is a minute. I hate the beeps and the boops in the background. I don't like it because it makes it hard to understand and hear, because sometimes that kind of noise can get lost in the background. So it's really like that kind of noise can muffle out the speech. It doesn't seem to here, but there's the added complication of the accent. So I would prefer that there was no music in the background, but I don't have the power to do that. So sorry, here we go.
I have been appalled to discover how many people, I've just been here for a couple of days. It's been wonderful. I always have a wonderful time in Washington. But I've been amazed and horrified by how many people are frightened of a guy called Tucker Carlson. Has anybody heard of Tucker Carlson? What is it with this guy? All these wonderful Republicans seem somehow intimidated by his perspective, and I haven't watched anything that he's said, but I'm struck by how often this comes up. Bad ideas are getting into starting to infect some of the thinking around the world about what Putin stands for, what he believes in. It's a disaster. He stands for war, aggression, systematic murder, rape, and destruction. That's what he stands.
It seems like Boris is projecting, because NATO seems to be the one that's standing for all of the things that Boris just listed there. More war, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Concerned Citizen says, holy cow, Ukraine. Joe Rogan discusses the media blackout over the Pentagon files, which is being referred to as the biggest U.S. leak since Edward Snowden. The documents were said to have shown blueprints for the Ukrainian war. Now you understand why peace was never an option or even discussed. The deep state, or whatever you want to call it, Goliath, Mr. Global, whoever it is, whoever you think it is, as suspected following the 2014 coup, have been planning this war for a long time. Brick by brick, piece by piece, the true nature of our reality and its history is being revealed to us. I don't know about that. I don't know if... I firmly believe one of the barriers to waking up is, just like our newspapers today give a false history of what happened yesterday, I think the history books of even my youth gave a false history of what happened in previous wars, even slightly, right? And it gets to the point. I didn't believe that this happened when I was younger. I didn't believe that you could get to a point where you can't discuss true things with people. But we are at a point where history has been ever so slightly massaged. And it's, outright lied about, right? Bold-faced lied about. But the narrative that people believe has been curated to a point where they believe something so completely and fully that any suggestion that may be false gets their hackles up. Like, they will defend their own brainwashing because other people believe it, and we're a pack animal or something to that effect, right? Like, you don't want to be the one guy who's arguing the unpopular position, right? I often am, and I'm okay with that. I like to do that, actually. I think taking the opposite position is interesting, and it's interesting to see how people's brains work to defend their position, because oftentimes they don't have a good argument to defend their position, and it degenerates into name calling. And I find that interesting too. I'm like, don't you have ammunition? Like, you believe in this enough to take that position, so you should know something about it, right? Like, you should have a reason or two. And I just think it's interesting to watch people collapse under that. I mean, not interested. I don't do it on purpose, but often that's what happens. Anyway, here's what's going on with Ukraine.
There's basically been a media blackout over these Pentagon files. It's being called the biggest U.S. government leak since Snowden. This happened in like the last couple weeks. And Fox News even made a statement, we're not going to cover this. We're not going to show the documents because like serious blueprints for Ukraine were leaked. And
Yes.
did you hear about these?
Yes.
So
Explain that to people.
I'm definitely not an expert on this.
It
But
seems like a blueprint for setting up this war.
yes, and a very sensitive document. I mean, John Kirby, he's like Biden's spokesperson. He's the guy who lied about the Nord Stream, in the press room. Mm-hmm. And he came out and said he specifically told media, don't cover this leak.
Don't cover the
Blunder.
truth, guys. You're with us.
There's basically been a media blackout over this Pentagon.
Right. So, media blackout, Pentagon leak. I actually hadn't even heard of it. I'm losing my touch. Usually I'm right on the edge of things like that, but I hadn't heard about anything of that. The first I heard of it was Joe Rogan talking about it. So that tells you how compromised at one of the boards that I used to frequent, and I don't so much anymore because it's compromised. The mods are compromised. It's to the extent of stuff like that wasn't even being stickied or wasn't even being kept up with, because I do keep up with things like that, right? But I hadn't heard anything about that. Maxime Bernier said, I've seen it multiple times in the past 2 years, and Putin confirms it in his interview with Tucker. The West sanctions against Russia were a major geopolitical and financial blunder. We shot ourselves in the foot. Yeah, I'm not sure about... I think the powers that be thought that if they sanctioned Russia, that Russia would financially collapse, thinking that the West was the only option. But China's there, and China's like neighbors with Russia. And so, right, like, it seemed short-sighted and kind of obvious to me, but I don't know. The people running our country are not the sharpest tools in the shed, although the people who are running those puppets seem to be quite capable at winning elections, seem to come out looking intelligent when all the media says, oh, they're so smart, blah, 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 blah. So it seems weird that they would make this kind of error. It seems like they wanted this to happen, but then the outcome wasn't what they expected. But it should have been. So how could they have expected something different? Did they have a weight on the scale in China as well? Did they think the shutting down the shipping, shutting down all of the economic activity would just crush China as well? Did they think that they would just sit back and allow that to happen? China, Anyway, moving on, or continuing in the tweet, we pushed the Russians into the arms of the Chinese. We gave a new impetus to the BRICS. We encouraged them. Yeah, Putin talks about, and this is probably the clip here, it's 4 minutes. So Putin talks about how something like 2018, 2019, yuan trade was something like 3%, and post the Ukrainian war kicking off, it's like 34% or something like that. And they trade in local currencies and they trade all sorts of stuff that realistically the US doesn't want to have happen, because the US wants to stay the world reserve currency, and BRICS gives the option to countries to not keep the US currency as the world currency. So that's interesting, right? Anyway, back to this. We encourage them to de-dollarize and create a parallel trade and financial system. We push dozens of emergent countries to side with them. It's the West that's becoming isolated in the world today, not Russia. Meanwhile, the US is going bankrupt and its military empire will collapse with its financial might. The West might give up its arrogance and find a new, more realistic role that ensures peaceful coexistence in a multipolar world. That's the hope. I think the reality is like really super different. Like, if you see an enemy who's kind of wounded, you think to yourself, do you think to yourself, I have to let them get better, right? So that they'll be a worthy enemy. Or do you think to yourself, I got to kill that guy so he'll never threaten me and my family again, right? An argument could be made on either side. So you hope that it's like, oh, America reasserts itself as, a good guy in a multipolar world, and you hope that the other country that is looking at America as a country that is being run by puppeteers, has an incompetent in the office currently, and used their dollar to control the world as a weapon to control the world for decades. Do you think to yourself, oh, that guy just needs a little time and he'll be better? Needs to feel this multipolar sting and then he'll be reasonable. Like, really? I don't know, man. I don't know. Fingers crossed. The Americans are and will always be our neighbors and closest friends and allies, but we don't have to follow them in their delusional power trips and foreign military adventures, which make things worse and where they keep being defeated in the end. We should never have taken part in the war with Ukraine, but rather called for a ceasefire and peace negotiations. Dear Zelensky, negotiate peace. Yours, Canada. That's all we need to do. Stamp, perfect, magnifique, right? Corrupt politicians in Washington and Ottawa are more of a threat to our security, prosperity, and freedoms than Putin. Let's hope that Trump comes back to the White House this fall and that he quickly strikes a deal with Putin to end this pointless war that has killed a generation of young Ukrainian men. I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen. Trump says that he's going to arm Zelensky to the teeth, and he's going to increase investment in NATO and all sorts. We're going to win this war. Oh, I saw him say that yesterday. There was a rally in, I don't know, in the last day or so, and he was saying that. And I'm sorry that I didn't tag it, but I didn't. I rolled my eyes, and I think I reposted it though, just because so people are aware, right? But I didn't tag it just because I don't want to be so heavy on American politics, because there's going to be a lot going on even without focusing on every little turn for Trump, right? So anyway, regardless, yikes. Speaking of, Robert Kennedy's talking about Ukraine. Robert Kennedy says, looks like the Biden administration deployed Boris Johnson to scuttle a tentative peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine in the spring of 22. This was never about the Ukrainian people. It was always about engineering a war against Russia. And D. Joel says, peace was signed between Ukraine and Russia in the spring of 22. Putin publicly showed the previously unpublished document in front of South African President Ramaphosa. I'm getting that terribly wrong. But yeah, it's 4 minutes. Oh, well, it's maybe 2 minutes. Sorry, it's 2 minutes. But it's all in Russian, I suppose. But he holds up the contract. He says, we never agreed with the Ukrainian side that this agreement be kept confidential. So he says we never showed this before, but here it is. And he tells who signed it. And then he holds it up so people can see. Right, there's the signature. Right, he put his signature right here. Right, he says here's the treaty. Like, this is real. It exists. He says, and so it's talking about Boris Johnson interfering in this peace negotiation in 2022, and I mean, that's notable. The powers that be planned this war. They never wanted peace. They never wanted peace ever. They sent operatives to scuttle peace instead. Here's Robert Kennedy Jr. He's talking about the Ukrainian war. minute and a half talking about why Putin's mad. I've seen this before. It's just succinct. So
I
here
want
we
to
go.
settle the war. Let's negotiate. And Zelensky has said we're not going to negotiate. But 92, the wall came down in the Soviet Union. Gorbachev said, I'm going to allow you to reunify Germany, but I want your commitment. After that, you will not move NATO 1 inch to the east. And we solemnly swore we wouldn't do it. Well, then in 97, we're going to move NATO 1,000 miles to the east and take 15 countries into it and surround the Soviet Union. We then overthrow the government. In 2014, their elected government, and put in a Western sympathetic government. Russia then has to go into Crimea because they have a port at Vladivostok. It's their only warm water port. And they know the new government that we just installed is going to invite the U.S. Navy into their port. So then the Russians go in. They only send 40,000 people. It's a nation of 44 million people. They clearly do not intend to conquer Ukraine. But they want us back at the negotiating table. The Russians just want to guarantee that Ukraine won't join NATO. Zelensky signs the treaty. Putin's people sign the treaty. And Putin starts withdrawing the Russian troops in good faith. And what happens? Joe Biden sends Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister, over to Ukraine in April and forces him to tear up the treaty. And since then, 450,000 kids have died who none of them should. Putin.
So that's not great, right? That's not great. Is that all on Boris Johnson or a bit bigger than that? Well, I could not find the clip of Trump yesterday saying that he was going to bolster any kind of money spending or anything like that for the Ukrainian war. So, that's good. I just couldn't I'm sure I saw it yesterday, but maybe it was somebody doing a bad take. But what I did find is people saying that, this clip, this is Donald Trump saying that any NATO country that does not pay up, he will encourage Russia to attack them, which I thought that was kind of, is he being serious? Maybe, yeah. But here is how he says he would end the Ukrainian war. Here we go.
Would you continue to give Ukraine money and weapons if you're elected? What's the answer?
If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours. It'll be absolutely
Do you
over.
want Ukraine to win this war?
I don't think in terms of winning and losing. I think in terms of getting it settled so we stop killing all these people.
Can I just follow up on that because that's a really important
Excuse me,
statement
let me
that
just
you just
follow
made
up.
there. Can you say if you want Ukraine or Russia to win this war?
I want everybody to stop dying. They're dying. Russians and Ukrainians. I want them to stop dying.
Would you?
There you go. So that's what he said. That's what I could find. And I was looking for the clip from yesterday. It looks like this. It was at this event. It was this event. And he was talking about Zelensky and he was talking about NATO and he was talking about, blah, 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 blah. And the person above had a quote there talking about how there was going to be more money for Zelensky in Ukraine to make sure this war ends quickly. And maybe it was, I don't know. I'm sorry that I can't find it. But the poll lady says, Trump, if NATO countries do not pay U.S. to protect them, I will encourage Russia to attack them. Here we go. This is only 20 seconds. It's in response to a question. Okay, here we go.
One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay? You're delinquent? He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. One of the presidents of
Canada, right? Ooh, whoops, right? So somebody's noticed that we're just, hanging out on the couch. Dinesh D'Souza is sharing this Trump truth. And he says, from this point forward, are you listening, U.S. Senate? No money in the form of foreign aid should be given to any country unless it's done as a loan, not just a giveaway. It can be loaned on extraordinarily good terms, like no interest and an unlimited life, but a loan nevertheless. The deal should be contingent that the U.S. is helping you as a nation, but if the country we are helping ever turns against us or strikes it rich sometime in the future, the loan will be paid back and the money returned to the United States. We should never give money anymore without the hope of a payback or without strings attached. The United States of America should be stupid no longer. So that's interesting. This was shared February 10th, 2024. So interesting stuff. I agree with that. I can't believe. I feel like the government is engaging in predatory lending when they go to Canadian businesses who are struggling and they say, here's a loan. And then they send billions of our dollars to Ukraine, billions of our tax dollars to Ukraine because we have to help them out with their country or something. It should not be allowed. It should not be tolerated. And first, we should be giving Canadians strings free money. Like, here's money for your business. we're sorry that we locked down the economy. More money will come soon when we open the economy again. And foreign countries should have loan terms if we send them money at all. And I don't think we should, because invariably, I don't think we're helping anybody. Maybe we're buying yachts. Maybe we're greasing some wheels. Maybe that's how business gets done. According to SNC-Lavalin, that's how business gets done. But I don't think we should be doing it. I don't think we should be engaging in it. And if we are engaging in it, maybe we should be a bit more transparent about it, right? Like, how many yachts has Canada bought this year to grease the wheels, right? Just to make sure the yacht buying is kept under control. And other various, Ferraris. How many Ferraris has the government of Canada bought in the last year? How many Ferraris has the government of Canada bought through things like SNC-Lavalin to grease the wheels, right? Like, those questions too, because if it's a government of Canada contract and SNC-Lavalin's greasing the wheels with a couple $1 million yacht here and there, well, we should probably know about that, right? And not find out about it after the fact. But don't worry, we got 60 jobs out of it, and 30 of them went to South Koreans. Can't Be Bought says, it's incredible that any Canadian would suggest we continue to support this Ukrainian war. We support peace, not wars. $40 million laundered that we know of. Complete corruption. Tyrannical conscription of Ukrainian citizens, barbaric. Elections canceled, undemocratic. Zelensky ran and won the presidency on a peace platform. He manipulated and lied to his people, propagandist. And Andrew Coyne is saying, it's depressing that this should ever even need saying. Globe editorial, why conservatives, big C conservatives and small c conservatives should support Ukraine. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Shoveling our money into an oven and just burning it for no reason whatsoever. For an undemocratic country that is, I don't think, even officially our ally. So unbelievable stuff happening with that, and we shouldn't be footing the bill for it. And the people who are advocating for it should be investigated. Stephen says Canada is once again. Let's move on to grab bag of governance today. And Stephen says Canada is once again trying to kill its innovation sector by banning normal tools we use for hardware development to distract from its corruption. Car thieves use simple RF boosters you can make with stuff from Home Depot. This is what a lot of car thefts look like. So this is what's happening. Guys are walking around neighborhoods, standing in alcoves and entryways and trying to boost the RF signal to take control of your car, right? To hijack the signal and piggyback in where it looks legit, right? And then the car starts. Pretty crazy stuff, right? And I mean, ingenious. Look at the COVID mask, right? Very covers your face very effectively. Scary stuff. And then they get in the car and bingo bango bongo, you're done, right? And the car is gone. We just watched a whole car theft, right? The whole thing. 40 seconds. Holy smoke, right? Good luck stopping that. There are people who have other secondary disability, like disabling devices and things like that in the car. So that's interesting too. Like, I saw one car theft where it worked, where they got in the car and the car started, but it didn't go anywhere. And then they got out and ran away. I thought, that's weird. Why that happened? So some cars are harder to steal, I guess, than others. Naya says the government expects to spend $300 million to make all the Emergencies Act documents bilingual because they're mostly in English. An index of documents submitted to the committee on behalf of the Privy Council office. So this is a $300 million spend for something that AI could do for probably cheaper than $300 million, right? But in Canada, we're going to spend all of this money on a translation for things that probably nobody is going to read, or very few people are going to read. I would love to see how many people read, like the analytics, and then finding out how much money per page per reader. You know what I'm saying? $300 million. Darn, that's very low readership rate. Seamus is responding to Lisa Raitt. Lisa says, no one in the federal Liberal government should be surprised, angered, or peed off by the Bell layoffs. The Minister of Labour would have received a request at least 16 weeks ago from Bell to waive the statutory process when laying off so many people. Government chose to make it easier for Bell to do this. And Seamus says, this is false. I respect Lisa as a former Labour Minister and MP, but this is wrong, and the affected workers should hear the truth. Labour officials learned on February 8 that Bell Media would be laying off employees the same day that Canadians did. As it stands, Thursday was an announcement. Companies are not required to notify the government about announcements on future layoffs. As labor minister, I'll make sure Bell follows its obligation under the labor code, and that workers receive everything they're entitled to. As a government, we'll consciously protect and invest in journalism. There's no democracy without it. The reason that the journalism that the government has paid for is failing is because it's not honest, it's propaganda, and it's actually really bad propaganda. Like obvious lies, like this woman is a man, or this woman is non-binary, or this man is non-binary. These things are false. It's like saying this human can fly, when we know, like not with a plane, but like Superman, when we know that that's not true. Men can't change sex and humans can't fly like Superman. It just, children understand these things, right? And to have society pearl clutching and not really understanding what's going on is really, really interesting. I had Greg reach out. He messaged me with this tweet, and he says, the BC Micro Dam is the largest dam in Canada. It's run and operated by BC Hydro, but the majority of its power goes to the U.S. This was created under the Columbian River Treaty, which could be terminated in September 2024 if 10 years notice was given. But the further, he sent me an email about this as well, and the bigger story is that this dam provides a lot of power to the U.S., and you can read about that by reading about the treaty. And here's a little bit of information. This is actually quite a nice story about how the locals were. It's not a nice story. It's a terrible story, but it's a nice story about what this area used to be like before the developers got in there and destroyed it all. But fundamentally, the majority of the power created goes to the U.S. So it says 50 years ago last week, the Canoe Valley south, of Valemount began a transformation that would permanently alter the landscape, the economy, and the future of the area. The Mica Dam, which remains one of the highest earthfell dams in the world, was the third dam built in Canada under the international treaty that harnessed the Columbia River system to facilitate flood control and maximize power generation in the U.S. and to a lesser degree in Canada. And then it talks about the history of the dam and getting it built and the rest of it, and the lies and the salesmanship, and it's like monorail, right? And it left this. It's interesting. The point attempting to be made, I guess poorly by me, is that in Canada we pay carbon taxes for this power, and we run this dam for the United States. They're not paying carbon taxes for that power, but Canadians do, and it's green power anyway. But Canadians would have to pay carbon taxes on it. I wonder if they manage the U.S. customers, or if they sublet, like if they send it to a U.S. broker or something like that, and the U.S. broker pays them and then sublets off to their customers. It's interesting, the whole structure of all this, but I'm just interested. It's a similar question to what I asked the other day. Does the coal being exported to China, do they charge carbon tax on that? Right? It seems like Canadians are the only ones punished with carbon tax, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't be competitive. It wouldn't be competitive on the world market. Now, that electricity, even if they paid a carbon tax, would probably be competitive on the world market because the dam is 50 years old, right? It's paid for. The infrastructure is paid for. You'd think, if anything's paid for, I guess. This is interesting. If you live in Guelph, there's been a gentleman who is known as Sign Guy, and he stands around Guelph, and he is very upset, rightly so, that that there's a property tax increase of 40% coming up over the next 4 years, 10% a year, roughly. And Cam Guthrie is trying to reduce the property tax increase to 4% rather than 10%. And so far that hasn't come to fruition, but he's announced that he's trying to do that with strong mayor powers. But so Sign Guy has this sign, and he stands around Guelph, and the sign says 38% property tax increase 2024 to 2027. That's not affordable, not sustainable, not respectful, not responsible. We need to collectively tell those who work for us that this does not work for us. And he's got Mayor of Guelph's email and Mike Schreiner's email. Mike Schreiner's the MPP. And he says multiple times, it's a 5-minute interview with Guelph Citizen. This guy walks around town. He's got his phone, and he's doing Guelph-centric work, so that's good. And I think that it's interesting because he says a couple of times in this, he's not trying to start a revolt. He's not trying to start a revolt. I would be interested in the legality of withholding taxes because the government is shirking their fiduciary responsibilities. I'm saying that probably wrong. Fiduciary responsibilities, and are not doing their duty to the country or the citizens. And I mean, like, that's a mealy-mouthed way of saying treason, and people don't like that. And I think it's interesting that he's saying we have to have a conversation. And I think that the I think, and I've had conversations with middle management, like mayors, city councilors. I've had conversations. I've been in these circles. These people, if you tell them what they're doing is wrong, they're not going to go, oh, we'll stop now. Like, they don't care. They don't care. They'll say, that's your opinion. Get out now. See you later. Like, we're not interested in hearing that opinion here because, we're trying to accomplish something inclusive here. Like, take your rainbow flag and get out. Like, here's a rainbow flag for you to take. Get out. So they're very ideologically captured. They believe in what they're doing. They don't see anything wrong with what they're doing. And telling them what they're doing is wrong is falling on deaf ears. And it has been for a long time. So anybody who's saying, we just want to start the conversation, which is kind of what he's saying, great. We're waking up. We're seeing that there's a problem. But man, like, it's going to take more than a conversation. And like, I'm interested in the legality of it. Like, what needs to be done to shake these people from their complacency, all the way up to the provincial level, all the way up to the federal level. Like, because what they're doing with our money is giving predatory loans to businesses while they shut down the economy and sending all of our money to China or to Ukraine and all of our coal to China. So, it's one of those things where I have some serious, serious questions. And I'm not saying that I want to collectively break the law or do anything that is, insurrection worthy or anything like that. I'm not trying to start a movement that is going to, take down the government or anything like that. That's not, taking down the government is something that happens as a matter of course and should happen regularly. And this government should have collapsed already because Jagmeet Singh should not be able to support Justin Trudeau while he's taking the polls like this. Anyways, regardless of all of that, the idea of a political solution is, unfortunately, like, I hope I'm wrong. I hope that there is a political solution. I hope we just have to have the right conversation. But I really feel like that's not looking at the problem realistically. Realistically, these people have power and they do not want to give it up. And they're not interested in, hearing you've done incorrect things like locking down the economy and you unleashed real damage by lying to your citizens about how safe and effective the vaccine was. And they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it at all, right? And they'll tell you to leave. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope I just haven't had the right tone. It's possible, right? I am a little salty sometimes. Zero Fox. Let's talk. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.